How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex, and my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Unfortunately, not a victory Monday, but nonetheless, going into the bye week, perfect time for the Giants to recoup, get a little bit healthier, and hopefully put together a solid next 2 weeks, especially if they are going to go out and get some more offensive talent. I do want to discuss that specifically, the logic or the arguments behind the Giants maybe going out and improving this team at the trade deadline. Joe Shane obviously would love to have his draft capital as much as possible. Just got a 3rd and 6th round pick from the Kadarius Toney trade. And he's still laying the bricks. He's still laying the foundation of this roster, building it kind of through the draft with some really strong rookie presence. Daniel Bellinger before the injury was just absolutely fantastic. Obviously, Evan Neal has made a big impact and has seen some nice developmental growth recently. And Kayvon Thibodeau also has just been a force. He's really showed up in a couple of these games late specifically. And Dane Belton too. He's played a ton to start the year. So they've gotten a lot of value. Some injuries. Darian Beavers will probably be starting right now. Micah McFadden had a sack yesterday. So the draft class seems to be strong up to this point. They're really contributing. And he probably wants to keep as many draft picks as possible to keep laying the bricks. But at a certain point, you have to make a decision. Do you want to compete now with your 6-2 football team, or do you want to just ride with what you've got and still look to the future? I think that there can be a healthy balance there. I think there can be a balance where the Giants do improve the team, but also have their draft picks. I think they have 11 draft picks next year. So they have a ton of people they're going to be drafting and bringing in here to make an impact. And then you'll have these guys obviously taking a step forward and getting Darian Beavers back and Marcus McKethan and DJ Davidson, who I think went down last week. So I'm pretty optimistic in this squad, Anthony. But when you're looking at this team, how important do you think it is allocate some of that draft capital now to bring in a receiver or someone to help this offense? Or do you think you just stick to your guns right into the sunset and hopefully these guys can step up and make a good impact in the first season under Dable and Joe and I guess Joe Shane?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to both decisions, whether the Giants decide to trade for talent or whether they decide not to trade for talent. Pros and cons to each of those decisions, because at the end of the day, trading for talent will mean sacrificing draft capital for the future, but it will mean improving the team right here, right now, making a push over the second half of the season towards the playoffs. And I think we all really want to see that happen, right? At the end of the day, we want to see the New York Giants win football games. If trading for a wide receiver or any other player, tight end maybe, will help the Giants win football games this season and push us into the playoffs, I think all Giants fans are going to be in on that, because at the end of the day, it's been years since we've watched playoff football. 2016 was the last time the Giants qualified for the playoffs, and it looks like they have a really good shot at making it back this year with a 6-2 start to the season, going into their bye week, hopefully getting a bit healthier and maybe adding some more talent via trades before the deadline. So I think that I'm all for a trade, but I also see the argument if Joe Shane doesn't want to make a trade, wants to keep building through the draft. That's obviously the best way to build an NFL team. We've seen that time and time again. The best teams in the NFL build through the draft. All of their most talented players get acquired via the draft. So if the Giants are going to go ahead, make 0 deals at the deadline, just the Kadarius Toney deal that they made to add draft capital, that's totally fine. And then we can hopefully build towards the future, get some more talent in next year's draft and the draft's forthcoming, and then build to make really hopefully a dynasty, right? A contender, perennial contender year after year with the added talent that we'll get through the draft.
It's kind of funny because nobody expected the Giants to be this good this year, rather just to be 6-2 by the bye week. And it seems like their success is putting Joe Shane in a pretty difficult spot, right? Because he has to decide between, do we go out and get some more pieces to improve this team, or do we just keep laying the bricks and hope for the future that this is going to become a fantastically coached and fantastically disciplined football team that executes at a very high level? And right now, I have one argument that I think is kind of interesting, one perspective, if you will, and that is regarding Daniel Jones, right? Anyone that says they expected Daniel Jones to do this year is probably lying. Nobody expected him to play as well as he has and play extremely clean football and do all the things he has been, efficiently. And at this certain point, do you really know? I guess my question for you is, do you know what we have in Daniel Jones yet? Do you know the true potential of Daniel Jones without seeing a potent offensive passing game? We know what he can do on the ground. We know that he's accurate. We know that he can do some things, but he doesn't have the right pieces and tools for what would be a very heavy passing game under Kafka and Brian Dable. Right now, we're a run-first team. We're running the football extremely well, but they've had to change their entire makeup to adjust to the strengths of this Giants offense. And this is traditionally not what they wanted to do. Kenny Golladay is not exactly their piece, their preferred wide receiver one. So you're looking at kind of what the Giants can do right now. And I think that going out and getting a Jerry Jeudy ultimately is the most beneficial thing for Daniel Jones's growth in this offense, right? We haven't seen DJ in the offense this team is supposed to be running, and that is a very heavy passing game like the Bills, like the Chiefs, like Patrick Mahomes, like Josh Allen. We haven't seen him do that yet. So if you improve the receivers, maybe you take a step in that direction. So, what are your thoughts about, have we seen the best of Daniel Jones yet? Have we seen him at his peak? And, is this offense where it needs to be right now?
See, I don't think that we've seen the best of Daniel Jones. I think we've seen it in glimpses, and even this year, but in the past, we've seen him. I mean, last year, he was NFC Offensive Player of the Week against the Saints with, 400 passing yards, wasn't, and a few touchdowns. So we've seen him actually have those explosive, dominant games. I don't know if we've necessarily seen that this year. Of course, the NFC Offensive Player of the Week last year against the Jacksonville Jaguars for completing a fourth quarter comeback win, rushing for over 100 yards and passing for over 100 yards. Great performance there. And that's kind of where you say maybe we saw the peak of Daniel Jones, especially in the running game. I think that's his peak. He's never ran for that many yards in a game. First New York Giants quarterback to rush for over 100 yards in a game since like 1946. So dominant performance on his behalf there. But have we seen his peak? I don't necessarily think that we have, because he's never had like a stable offense with him. He's never had stability at the wide receiver position. He's never had stability on the offensive line. If we ever get a 5-game stretch where the Giants actually have good wide receiver play, some solid talent around Daniel Jones, plus offensive line is stable and consistent for 5 weeks, then we'll see Daniel Jones hopefully reach his peak. He can thrive in an offense with playmakers, with pass protection, all of that good stuff that any NFL quarterback just needs to succeed. I would love to see Daniel Jones actually acquire all of that, have that on the team with him. But right now he doesn't, and he never really has. So if the Giants were to go out there, trade for a wide receiver, someone who can just dominate over the second half of the season, whether that be a Jerry Jeudy or somehow a Brandon Cooks, whatever the case might be, if Daniel Jones had that X factor receiver to throw to, not just Saquon Barkley out of the backfield to hand the ball off to and throw some screen passes to, but an X factor, dominant, play in, play out, reliable wide receiver, then I believe we could see that to be the catalyst to Daniel Jones reaching that peak, maybe being in his prime. Again, the Giants are winning games, and Daniel Jones is a big part of that. He's helping them win. He is clutch in the fourth quarter this year. He's keeping the ball out of harm's way. There was a play yesterday in that game where, of course, we lost, but Daniel Jones got sacked from behind, and in years past, that was an automatic fumble. No doubt about it. But somehow he held on to it, and I've never seen him actually hold on to a ball in that situation. Yeah, I was like, man, that's a fumble, whatever, game over. But no, I mean, of course, we still went on to lose the game, and it was a costly sack in its own right, but it wasn't a sack fumble. And in the past, we've seen that from Daniel Jones. So I've definitely seen him improve in a variety of ways, whether that be ball security, accuracy, decision-making, going through his progressions, especially standing poised in the pocket, taking the hits and not fumbling, all that stuff. Daniel Jones is putting it all together right now, but he doesn't have all of the pieces around him to make the full puzzle. So to get those pieces right now for the second half of the year via trade might just be all he needs to have that breakout, to really solidify himself, and for the New York Giants fans to finally see peak Daniel Jones. So I'm all in on trading for a wide receiver, a tight end, whatever the talent that he needs to catalyst him to that success. I'm so ready for that, because I think we're really close to getting that peak Daniel Jones. We're just 1 or 2 pieces away.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't want to be the reason that we don't see the best of him, right? If we don't go and get that receiver, if we don't make that slight adjustment and improvement to help him out, I want to see what he's really capable of. Because some people have been responding to me on Twitter like, we already know what Daniel Jones is. We don't need to get him any more pieces. We know what he can do. We know what he is. And I'm like, he's not even playing in the system we're supposed to be playing right now. We're running the football like 70% of the time. We're not throwing the ball. Our coordinator doesn't trust the receivers. This is not the Daniel Jones, the version of him that we're supposed to be seeing. What we're supposed to be seeing is the bootleg and the play actions as a creative addition onto the offense, not the offense. It's not supposed to be the whole offense, guys. This is supposed to be a stopgap solution for a myriad of deficiencies hurting this offense right now. And the offense we're supposed to be seeing is spreading it out. A lot of, very open receivers where they can make guys miss in the open field, and spreading things out and getting creative with your tight ends and getting creative with Wan'Dale Robinson and scheming him the ball. And, the defense is not just locking in on DJ and Saquon on the ground and being able to shut down our entire unit. This is not the offense we're supposed to be seeing. This is we have no other choice. This is our strengths. We're playing to them offense. You know what I mean? And right now, I don't know what Daniel Jones is because we haven't seen him in the offense we're supposed to be running. So going in to get a receiver who can help this unit now, help us get a little bit closer to that, help us scheme the ball to guys like Wandale, scheme the ball to Saquon, where they're not just focused in on and honing in on their qualities and shutting them down. That's what we need. We need a receiver to open up this offense and really get back to what we're supposed to be doing here in terms of developing the scheme. And for that reason, I don't think we've seen the best of Daniel Jones. I don't think we've seen what he can be. I don't think we've seen him passing the ball as effectively as he can because we have no one to throw the freaking ball to. God forbid Marcus Johnson has run a freaking streak route downfield. Only one that showed up yesterday was Darius Slayton on those third downs. Hell of a job by him. All the credit in the world for him for the performance he had. So, but right now, if you add another piece to that unit, you get Evan Neal, you get Ben Bredesen back and Daniel Bellinger back in a couple weeks here, that playoff push becomes very real. You're like, okay, we got our pieces back. This offense can move. We can do some stuff. And then your piece, whoever you acquire by tomorrow, has now been acclimated into the offensive system. So right now, I think getting a receiver. Now, here's the thing. How much are you willing to give up for a receiver, right? It's easier said than done. So yeah, let's go out and get a receiver. Let's go and, get somebody who's going to help Daniel Jones. Who can you actually afford to get that's going to make that type of impact? You know what I mean? Are you willing to give up a second-round pick for Elijah Moore? Are you willing to give up a second-round pick for Chase Claypool? Are you willing to give up a second-round pick for Jerry Jeudy, who has 2 years left on his contract? Second-round pick sounds a little bit too pricey for me. I'm looking for a third, and I'd give up a third and a fourth-round pick for somebody, a good player that's still on the rookie deal with a couple years left. I think that's the maximum I would go. But I'd love to hear your guys, opinions in the YouTube section on that as well. But Anthony, what are you thinking in terms of what's the maximum amount of draft capital you'd be willing to part with?
Yeah, personally, a second-round pick is the maximum that I'm willing to part with. I know a lot of fans aren't willing to give up that second-round pick. Second-round picks are very valuable, but I do believe that providing that level of talent to the offense right now that you would get by trading away second-round pick is also really valuable. I think that the Giants can win more games towards the second half of the year and make that playoff push, be serious contenders for the second half of the season. And I want to see that, man. I want to see the Giants get back to the playoffs. I want to see them continue to win these games. It was a great start to the season, 6-2 going into the bye. No one saw that coming. I want to continue that. I want to keep that momentum, get some talent in here, bolster that wide receiving core. We're going to also get hopefully Evan Neal back from his MCL injury and hopefully a couple other pieces on the defense and the offense alike. I just want to add some talent to this team. I feel like the offense really is that one piece away from really excelling and pushing forward and having a great second half of the season. So it depends on the name, but yes, a second round pick is something that I'm willing to part with, especially if it is for Jerry Jeudy, who still has 2 years on his contract of around $4 to $4.8 million per season. That's not too expensive to pay, especially when you look at the Giants salary cap hit or salary for the next 2 years. They're supposed to have a ton of cap space. Affording Jerry Jeudy on a $4 million contract, they can absolutely do that. And you're paying a second round pick to get a former first round pick, a guy who still has first round pick talent, has WR1 potential. I think it's a good deal and it's worth it. But if they don't want to part with a second, I think you can absolutely throw a mid-round pick towards Brandon Cooks and provide a similar impact to the offense. So if that's the way that the Giants want to do it, that's the way that they should. However, his salary might be a little bit higher. I'm not sure the exact details on his cap hit, but I know that Brandon Cooks is a veteran in this league. He's also had injury problems. He's been on a ton of teams. If the Giants want to take a flyer on him, it's probably going to be a lot less expensive than it is to trade for a Jerry Jeudy or a Chase Claypool, or especially an Elijah Moore, who's just in his second season. So I think there's a multitude of ways for the Giants to attack this, but I definitely think the outcome here should be bolstering the wide receiver core ahead of tomorrow's trade deadline. I really think it's important to go ahead and acquire some additional talent, and I do think that Jerry Jeudy is the best name for them. I think he makes sense. He's got the connection with Brian Dable. He fits the offense. I would love to see that happen. Could propel Daniel Jones to have that breakout the same way Stephon Diggs did when he was traded to the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen. I think that makes a lot of sense in my eyes, but I also see the argument, man, saving the draft capital, second round pick next year. You could get a wide receiver in the second round next year who you have for the next 4 years. And he's on a cheaper contract than Jerry Jeudy even would be. So you can maybe even get someone better than Jerry Jeudy in the second round next year. That's, of course, absolutely possible. But then again, the Giants did just add an additional 6, an additional third by trading away Kadarius Toney. They could potentially move back into the second round before the draft ends next year. They have a lot of time to recuperate that draft capital if they give up their second round pick and move back in. Keep in mind, we have a couple of key players that are going to be heading towards free agency this offseason, whether that be Daniel Jones or that be Saquon Barkley. You can always franchise tag or transition tag one of those two guys and maybe make a move with them. That's a possibility. And I know we all love Dexter Lawrence right now, but he's also going to be a very valuable player that could maybe even recoup a first-round pick if you wanted to. So the Giants, they can get creative. They've got players. Kenny Golladay might get traded for mid to late round picks at some point. Leonard Williams, the same. He can also be traded for picks at some point. Huge contract that the Giants might want to move on from, even though he's a great player. So giving up that second round pick, yes, I know it's going to be a difficult task to recuperate that, and you're going to have to sacrifice some current talent established on the roster if you want to. But at the same token, you will get added wins this season and next season and the seasons forthcoming if you trade away that second round pick for a talented wide receiver. That's just the way I see it. So you got to make the checks and balances, pros and cons list, all that kind of stuff. But I do believe that trading away a second round pick at the maximum, I wouldn't go as far as to trade away the first, but I'd trade away the second, add that talent right now, win some games now, and continue to win games in the future with whoever we get via this trade.
Yeah. So like to build on top of that, last thing I want to say is that the draft is a crapshoot. Like you could have a second round pick, first round pick that absolutely busts and doesn't offer you any value. So going and trading for someone who's a proven commodity who can, is going to impact your team in a positive way is sometimes, especially if they're still on the rookie contracts, by the way, and they have a couple of years left. That is a very good scenario. That's why Chase Claypool's, fetching a second rounder because he has years left on his deal. Jerry Jeudy, 2 years left on his deal, and he's not gonna cost you much, and he's gonna help you immediately. So that's kind of the mindset, the mentality. But that also Joe Schoen trusts his draft process. He trusts his draft evaluation. So he probably thinks that I have a good enough chance of getting someone that's valuable that can make an impact, as I would be trading a draft asset for right now for a player who's even proven. So I'm curious to see what they do. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Of course, we could be wrong. I don't think we're a receiver away from a Super Bowl. And that's obviously the most important thing at the end of the day. Like, we are not where the Buffalo Bills were when they traded for Stephon Diggs. They got Diggs and he was the last piece of the puzzle. We're like starting the puzzle. We have some pieces. We're not even sure some of the pieces fit just yet. It's a pretty good analogy used before the puzzle because it doesn't make a lot of sense for this Giants team. A lot of pieces that just, we're not sure if they fit. Some pieces don't fit at all. And we don't know if we acquire somebody, they are going to fit. And some of those pieces are actually missing a leg. So it's kind of crazy, the situation we're going through right now. I don't exactly know the answer, but I do know that Daniel Jones could use the support. I do know that it would make this team better immediately, and that's something to consider. So I'd love to hear your perspectives, your opinions below in the YouTube comments section. As always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow before the trade deadline.